Today I've got some holiday romance recommendations for you, and I don't mean the festive holidays. What I mean is the summer holidays. So if you are living in the Northern Hemisphere, we're about to move into the month of June, and I'm sure many of you are preparing to at least have some time off work, even if you choose to have a staycation rather than going away on holiday. And if you're anything like me, then you like to have lots of fun books downloaded onto your Kindle that are going to make you smile because you want to read something uplifting and fun while you're on holiday. And so today I've got 8 recommendations for you that I think would be perfect if you are looking for some lighter reads this summer. So the first one I want to recommend is Hideaway Heart by Melanie Harlow, and this is book 2 in her Cherry Tree Harbour series. It's kind of a series of small town romances, and this particular one is also a forced proximity, bodyguard, singer, country star, heroine, and also a brother's friend. So we're following Pixie Hart, who is our country star, otherwise known as Kelly Jo Sullivan, and then we have Xander Buckley, who is friends with Kelly's brother. Essentially, Kelly is a country star, like I said, and she just wants a break. She wants to get away from the paparazzi for a bit and just spend some time on her own. And so she's booked kind of like a week in this holiday cottage near to the town of Cherry Tree Harbour, and you know, she's just looking to relax, disconnect from social media and just spend some time on her own. However, her brother is not too happy. He doesn't think it's smart for her to be by herself. He still thinks that she needs a little bit of protection, and therefore he asks his friend Xander Buckley to basically be her bodyguard. Now, the way they know each other is because they used to be in the armed forces together. So Xander is an ex-soldier and he has retired from the military and is trying to open a bar, but at the minute it's sort of going through refurbishment, so he does have a little bit of time on his hands, and he does owe his friend a favour, so he does agree to go and be Kelly's bodyguard. However, the brother basically warns him that Kelly is not going to be too receptive to him just turning up and being her bodyguard, and so he's going to have to not listen to what she said if she tries to push him away. And so of course this is exactly what happens when Xander rocks up and knocks on her door and says, "Hey, your brother sent me to take care of you." Kelly is not too happy, and this is a very small cottage that she's rented. There's only 1 bedroom and 1 bed, and so at first she says, "Well, you can stay if you want to, but you're not staying here with me. You're going to have to stay outside, either in your car or on the porch." And of course it's not too long before she starts to feel really guilty that this big strapping guy is not sleeping too well, is in very uncomfortable accommodations, and then she sort of says, oh, reluctantly, okay, you can come and stay and sleep on the couch instead. And then obviously as they start to get to know each other and she starts to drop her guard a little bit and gets less upset with him about being there at all, they then of course start to have a great time together. And you know, Xander is local, his family live in the area, and so they go on a couple of really cute dates and get to know each other, and their romance goes from there. And I really enjoyed this one. It made me smile, and it was a nice uplifting read. Then I want to recommend this one here, The Right Move by Liz Tomforde. You have probably heard this one, many of you have probably read it. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's book 2 in the Windy City series, and this one is a sports romance, and our hero in this one, Ryan Shea, is a basketball player, and he's the twin brother of the heroine from book 1, Stevie. Now Stevie was a flight attendant, and one of her best friends, and also the person who she worked with, is a lady called Indy. And Indy in book 1 finds out that her long-term partner has been cheating on her, and she then ends up kind of without a boyfriend, without anywhere to live, and so she is quite down about this. Now Stevie used to live with her brother Ryan, but since obviously she has now found her HEA, she is now living with her boyfriend, and so Ryan has got a spare room. Indy needs a room, and Stevie says to Ryan, please can Indy come and stay with you. Now Ryan isn't too happy about this at first. He, like I say, he's a basketball player, a very famous one. He earns an awful lot of money, and his 100% focus is on the sport that he loves. And also he is very socially isolated because he does everything he can to protect his reputation, prevent the you know, the press from catching any kind of story that he might be involved in. And as a result, he also has chosen to remain celibate. So you can see that he wouldn't be too happy that Indy would kind of move in with him, especially as he's also a neat freak and Indy is a little bit messy. However, he really loves his sister. His sister begs him to do her this favour, and so he agrees to let Indy stay with him until she can get on her feet. Of course, as soon as she moves in, she's like a whirlwind, and she completely takes over this space, and Ryan can't find it in himself to be upset about this, because you know, Indy is the breath of fresh air that he really needs in his life, and very quickly they get to know each other and start a friendship. Then very quickly this goes from then a roommate situation to a fake dating situation, because Ryan, like I said, is totally focused on the game, but the general manager of the team thinks that he's a bit of a loner, he has no work-life balance, and he suggests that maybe he starts dating, gets himself a partner, and becomes more of a team player and sort of gets a bit more of a work-life balance. And so Ryan thinks that the best way around this is to pretend that he's got a girlfriend, and that girlfriend should be Indy. And Indy is only too happy to agree to this because she also needs a favour from Ryan, because her ex-boyfriend, the one that cheated on her, is now going to be at a friend's wedding, and she wants to make sure she's got a date for this wedding. And then of course, as they start to fake date, their relationship goes from there, and what was once fake becomes less fake as time goes on. I really love this one. Everyone raves about Ryan Shea. He's the perfect boyfriend. He does some really sweet and thoughtful things for Indy, and it really was an enjoyable read and would highly recommend. Now, I wouldn't normally recommend a mafia romance for a summer reading holiday because, like I say, I like to keep it light and breezy. However, there is one mafia romance that had me smiling throughout. It's completely wild, wacky, crazy, and I absolutely loved the main hero, and that is Dom by S.J. Tilly. And of course, this is also a great opportunity for me to show off the limited edition cover that I've got here. It's absolutely beautiful. So Dom is book 3 in the Alliance series, which, by the way, every single book in this series is fantastic, but Dom is the standout read of this one, and you could read it as a standalone if you wanted to. Like I said, this is a mafia romance. It's also a marriage of convenience, and we're following Val and Dominic. Now, Val is the half-sister of a character we've met before, King, and he is kind of one of the people who kind of runs the Alliance, and the Alliance is a very powerful kind of mafia group. Dom is a Chicago mafia don, and he is desperately trying to form an alliance with the Alliance and wants to be part of the gang, but Nero and King from books 1 and 2 really don't want Dom to be part of this. So Dom hatches this scheme where he's going to trick Val into falling in love with him and marrying him, so that then he's essentially part of the Alliance because he's married into the family, and so that is basically what Dom proceeds to do. So he engineers a meet cute with Val in an airport. They have a great connection together. Val is really taken with him, likes him. Then they start texting each other, and then Dom tricks her into meeting him in Las Vegas, where he then drugs her and basically marries her. Now, when they wake up the next morning, Dom pretends like they were both drunk, but Val isn't too upset about it because she really does like Dominic. And the sad thing is that Val has really low self-esteem, she really lacks confidence, and she is completely overwhelmed and cannot believe her luck that somebody like Dom would want to be with her. So of course, when she finds out that this has all been a ruse to so that Dom can get in with her brother, she is literally heartbroken. And this is when the craziness really starts, because in in retribution, out of anger, Val throws her wedding ring out of the car window while they're travelling back to Chicago, and then Dom takes very drastic action to make sure that she can never throw her wedding ring away again in the future, and it just loads of crazy stuff happens. Dom is a wild, wacky, obsessed, possessed kind of hero. He's the kind of alpha hero that I absolutely love because he does some very questionable things, and in normal circumstances or even with other books that I've read, I would not allow some of this stuff, would absolutely hate it. But Dom is just so charismatic, charming, and so in love with Val by the end that we completely forgive him for everything that he's done, and I just absolutely loved it. So while this is a mafia romance, it absolutely had me smiling throughout, and I think would make the perfect summer read. Then I've got another sports romance recommendation for you, which is Rules of Engagement by J.T. Geissinger. This is a standalone romance and we are following Maddie and Mason. Now Mason is a professional football player. He is the grumpiest grump that I have ever read. He is so grumpy, and he's also got a really bad reputation. He's not particularly nice, and so both the football team and his agent want him to kind of turn over a new leaf and become more of a family man. And therefore they try and find him a wife, and this is where Maddie comes into it, because Maddie owns her own kind of like dating agency. She is a brilliant matchmaker, and so they go to Maddie's agency basically to find help, get help for Mason so that she can find him a wife. Of course, their personalities are going to clash massively. Mason is not a gentleman at all. He needs a lot of coaching when it comes to women, and a couple of dates he goes on do not end well, and so Maddie ends up having to coach him one-on-one, spend more time with him, and of course as she does, she starts to realise that his grumpy exterior is hiding a very, very hurt and vulnerable interior, and he's actually a really, really nice guy with some great intentions, and Maddie really, really starts to enjoy his company and see him for who he really is. And I thoroughly enjoyed the read. I thought it was fantastic and would highly recommend. Next up then we have The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. This is another sports romance, but this time we're talking ice hockey, and this is book 2 in the Vancouver Storm series. We're following Rory and Hazel in this one, and it's another kind of fake dating trope, friends to lovers, with some caretaking. There's no third act breakup in this one, which I absolutely loved because it didn't need it, and it's also quite a slow burn, this one. So essentially Rory is a professional ice hockey player. He plays for the Vancouver Storm, obviously, and Hazel, our heroine, she is like a physiotherapist who works on the team, and so Rory and Hazel are kind of friends, but they also knew each other in high school, and Rory's always had a crush on Hazel. However, in high school she actually dated another guy who was also very good at ice hockey, went on to become a professional hockey player. And she followed him to college, and during college he started to cheat on her, said some horrible things to her, and now has completely put her off relationships and love, and she is completely heartbroken by what this person did to her. But also she has lost a lot of confidence in herself as a result of what he said to her as well, and this has basically meant that she stays away from relationships, but she does a lot of one-night stands. However, this guy is drafted to the Vancouver Storm team, and so now he's going to be playing on the same team as Rory, and Hazel is going to have to be his physiotherapist, and as soon as he turns up he acts like a complete and utter jerk, starts to make Hazel feel really uncomfortable, and you know, starts to make advances towards her or suggests that she's still hung up on him in some way. So Rory basically decides he's going to step in to defend Hazel but also protect her going forward, and they therefore pretend to fake date so that it really kind of like gives Hazel a bit of a buffer, but also means that Rory is then around her much more often to make sure that this other guy can't do or say anything that's going to make her even more uncomfortable. And so then what happens is this really, really sweet, like I say, slow burn romance between them, where they take their friendship to the next level. They start talking more, texting, and getting to know each other, and it's absolutely fantastic. Loved every moment of this story. Yeah, would highly recommend. Next up then we have a relatively new release, and it's Wild Love by Elsie Silver, and this is book 1 in her new series, the Rose Hill series. In this one we're following Ford and Rosie, and Ford is basically Willa's brother. So Willa is a character from the book Heartless from her previous series. Everybody loves Willa. If you've read that story then you know, but Ford is Willa's brother. So that is the connection really to these two series. Ford is a billionaire, like Willow. His parents are obviously, his father in particular is a famous singer, had lots of money, but also Ford did quite well for himself, and worked with some people at college to create an app that did really, really well and has made a lot of money. And now he is putting down roots in the small town of Rose Hill and trying to set up his own record label. So then our heroine is Rosie. She is Ford's best friend's younger sister. They grew up together, knew each other, and actually have always secretly liked each other. But then obviously when Rosie grew up, she then went to the big city, got herself a really good job, and has had a boyfriend and everything was looking really good for her. Apart from now, she's in a situation where she's recently lost her job, she's splitting up with her boyfriend, and she moves back to live with her brother in Rose Hill, where she bumps back into Ford, and they haven't seen each other for about a decade. But their relationship is like they've never been apart, because they go back exactly how they were before when they were teenagers. And basically their default setting for their relationship is banter, bickering, and basically picking on each other. That's what they do, with witty comebacks and clever conversation, and I absolutely loved it. The interaction between them was great. I just loved how they interacted with each other and how the story unfolded. Because Rosie doesn't have a job, Ford offers her a job to come work with him at his record label as his assistant and to help him set it up and everything. And at the same time, he figures out that he's a single dad because when he was, again, a late teenager, he needed some money to buy a concert ticket. His dad wouldn't lend him the money because he wanted to get him to appreciate the value of earning his own money. So he decided that he was going to donate his sperm at a local sperm bank to, to pay for these tickets. And then his donation was used, and now he has a 12-year-old daughter. So now he's also a guardian for a 12-year-old girl. And so it was great to see his relationship with the daughter, and also how Rosie interacts with her as well. So I thought this was really, really good, cute, small town romance, which I really enjoyed. Then for the sleuths amongst you, I've got a spicy murder mystery, and that is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. So this is where our heroine, Taylor, goes on holiday. She's a school teacher. She's been saving for ages, and she takes her brother with her on holiday. They've rented a house in Cape Cod, and she's really excited to be there, except when they get there, they discover a dead body in the house, and the dead body belongs to the guy who owns the property. Of course, they call the police, and then an investigation begins. But the police don't seem to have that much of a lead, and therefore the sister of the man who's died calls in a favour from a friend, and basically that is in the form of Miles, who is our hero in this one. He is an ex-police officer, an ex-detective, now bounty hunter, and she's asked him to come to Cape Cod to see if he can help uncover who killed her brother. And so when Miles turns up, he bumps into Taylor, and then they kind of like form a very unlikely detective duo, because although Taylor has no experience whatsoever, she's listened to a lot of crime podcasts and is very perceptive, picks up on a lot of clues. And while Miles at first really tries to push her away and says, you know, you've got no business investigating this murder, you know, just leave it to the experts, Taylor keeps kind of intervening, and eventually, very reluctantly, Miles has to let her take part. Of course, now they're both sniffing around, investigating a murder that they really shouldn't be, and so the person who has done this murder is not going to be too happy about it, and maybe they put themselves in a bit of danger. And throughout all of this, it's very, very clear that they're very attracted to each other, and so they're going to start a romantic relationship with each other while the investigation unfolds. So enjoy this one, and would recommend if you like a murder mystery. And the last one I want to recommend today is a paranormal fantasy romance, but it's set in a small town, and it's called Getting It On with Gargoyles by Hazel Mack. This is book 1 in the Haven Ever After series, and we're following Thea and Shepherd. Now, Thea ends up being a witch and Shepherd is a gargoyle. But what happens at the start of this one is that there are 3 sisters. They find a map in an old kind of junk shop. They buy this map and it seems to be a magical map, and on this map is a pinpoint to this town called Ever, and they decide to go on a bit of a road trip to try and find it. Now they keep going round and round in circles, can't get in, until they end up at a petrol station where Shepherd is kind of working there. He owns it and he's working there, and then as soon as he sees these women he realises that they are in fact witches, and he allows them entry into the town of Ever, which happens to be this kind of small town but packed filled with monsters and creatures of all descriptions. So centaurs, trolls, fairies, vampires, you name it, they're all in town. And of course the reason they couldn't find it and going around in circles is because it's kind of magically guarded, so that normal people, normal humans can't find it and get in. But because the sisters are witches, obviously then now they can come in. And Thea and Shepherd actually are fated mates, and so they start a romance together. But I thought this was a really light-hearted, fun kind of read. It very much reminded me of that TV show, if you've ever seen it, A Town Called Eureka, which is a regular town but filled with geniuses, and this is a regular town but filled with kind of monsters, but also there's a little mystery that starts to unfold because the town's wards are being attacked. And of course the Witchy Sisters are going to need to help the townsfolk protect the wards and keep the shields up so no bad elements can get into town. But overall a really fun read, and the rest of the series is really good as well. So there we have it. That's 8 stories that I think would be perfect to read during the summer. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye. That his grumpy prickly exterior is very much hiding. You know, his grumpy exterior is hiding a very hurt one thing goes to another. Is that the saying? One thing, is that the saying? It sounds wrong now I'm saying it, but it's one thing goes to another. One thing goes to another. Let me see. It goes from one thing to another. So we go from, so one thing goes from, what is it? One thing goes wrong, no. One thing goes. I know many of you are planning a getaway at this, no, I don't know, do I? I don't know.